Alright folks, this is my Predator generator. Another generator video. If you don't like generators, just skip this video, But I'll put a link to my previous one up here in the corner where I talked about isolating the neutral and the ground. Yes, National Electric Code does require the ground and neutral to be isolated and bonded in your main panel, and only one ground rod, or only grounds to that bonded panel. So you can have multiple ground rods in the panel, not a separate ground rod on the generator. So, but I just got done siphoning all the old gas out of her. I've added to it since then, but it's been a year since I did a fuel change. So I changed the fuel. I put fresh 2-gallon can of gas in it. I put stable in it. I'm just using 10% ethanol fuel because I have to drive like 40 or 50 miles to get ethanol-free fuel. I'm not doing that, right? And then I put the old gas in my car. While it had almost a full tank, and I just put the old gas in there. And it'll all mix up with the good gas and it'll be fine. In fact, the gas was still fine. I just ran it last week for a power outage and it ran fine. But I like to keep a couple gallons of fuel in it so that I can come out here and just start it up and get it running. And then if the power outage lasts and it starts, to run out of fuel, I'll shut it down and fill it up and start it back up again. I really love this generator for when there's a power outage and you just want to plug in and run your house as normal. I just want to have air conditioning, use the microwave, turn on lights, and use my house as normal. But it takes a lot of gas, right? It takes a whole lot of gas. So in an extended outage, especially if I can't get out to get gas, if we have a really bad storm, like when Hurricane Ike hit us in 2008, I was without power for over a week, right? And I would not have wanted to run this big expensive generator for that whole time. It would cost me hundreds in fuel, right? Because these use a lot of gas. It says on here somewhere it has 13 hours of runtime. That's at 50% load. So if you're running the central air and stuff, you're probably going to get more like 8 or 9. That's a big tank. It'll hold an entire 5-gallon can of gas, right? So 24/7, this uses a lot of gasoline. That's why I think it's also important to have other power strategies that you can fall back on, so you don't have to keep running this for an extended power outage. And how far that extends depends on how you're going to be getting power or charging things or stuff like that. So I'll take and show you my other generator and my other power plans. So as you can see up here, I have two 200-watt solar panels in storage. So I have 400 watts of solar. So when we go back to the shed here and I talk about solar, you'll know that I have 200 watts of solar panels. These were clearance panels. I bought them over 10 years ago and they had 10 years left on the warranty then. They're, I think, at Toshiba, and they come with a 20-year warranty, but they used a 10-year warranty. They came off of a solar farm where they upgraded the panels and they sold the old ones off really cheap, and I bought 2 of them. Alright, so in 2008 when Hurricane Ike was coming through, I ran out and bought a generator. I was running off of inverter at first, just a fan and a light. And I was like, holy crap, this storm's getting really bad. It's going to be a while before I get power back. And so I went up to the local Big Lot store because I had seen some generators there a couple weeks before. And I'm like, I bet they'll have them. I ran up there. The bigger ones were all sold out. They had 2 of these left. I bought one. And I mean, I stopped on the way home. I took it out of the box and stopped on the way home and filled up the gas tank. And this thing ran for over a week. And even after they turned the power back on, they had to come do a cut and run on me because it pulled down my pole that the lines mount to, and the lines were laying in the yard. They still had power, but I wasn't going to have them powered up laying down in the yard. So they came and did a cut and run, and I had to fix that pole and everything, put new wires in it. And then they came and hooked me back up a few days after that. So I ran the heck out of this generator. Now this generator says it's 1,000 watts. I have done 1,800 watts off of this thing for an entire night running a window air conditioner, and it did it. So this one is really underrated. It just runs and runs. This is an amazing generator. It just starts every time. It puts out exactly 120 volts, like exactly 60 hertz. It's an amazing little generator, and I love it. It only puts out the 120 volts. There's no GFCI. It is neutral and ground bond, or yeah, neutral and ground's bonded. And it gives some little things over here. Rated voltage 120, 60 hertz, 1 kilowatt. Max power 1.2 kilowatts. It will do more power than that. So, you know, usually like on cheap Chinese generators, they're overrated. This one seems to be a little underrated. It's got a little Honda clone engine on it that just purrs like a kitten. It's really quiet, and it works really well. I did accidentally, well, I mean, it accidentally happened. I didn't do it, but I had a tree branch fall on it after the Hurricane Ike came through, and it smashed the gas tank down. It still worked, but it didn't hold as much gas. So they had this a couple years after that. I didn't do it right away. I decided I wanted to replace the gas tank, and I called this number, and they answered, and I told them I had a Powercraft Pro and I needed a new gas tank, and it was only like $23, and like I don't know how much the shipping was, but the shipping was less than $10, and they sent it right out. I've called back recently and I bought some new air filters for it. They still answer that number, right? And so I got some new air filters for it. I have extras. I did have to put a new fuel line on it. The old one got hard and broke. But other than that, it's pretty much just worked, except for 2 things. These bolts that originally screwed in here were just threaded into this part, and those threads stripped out, and the generator had kind of started to separate a little bit. It didn't hurt the rotor or the stator, but it ruined the bearing back here. So I had to get a new bearing. I found one the exact right size at Tractor Supply. I put that in, and then I put these extra bolts, these big thick bolts through here with a nut on the other end, so that stays tight. I haven't had that problem again. So I've thought about calling and just getting another muffler, because this muffler is still good and solid, but it used to have a little protective cover on it, and the protective cover fell off and it left these 2 little holes in it. It still isn't real loud though, but it has these 2 holes in it. I might just touch those up with the arc welder one day. I mean, it's just a teeny bit louder. You can hear just a teeny bit more with those 2 holes, but it's not that bad. So yeah, I have this generator, and the reason for this one is because I can run fridges and freezers and little stuff, and this one gets exceptional fuel usage. I mean, it will run an entire day and night on 1 tank of fuel. I mean, it just sips the gasoline. So that's really nice. And I have 2 freezers and 1 big refrigerator. I might not be able to run them all at once. If they happen to cycle their compressors on at exactly the same time, it might overload this. But I can plug one in and unplug the other one, and then plug the other one in and unplug this one, you know. So I can do that. I have plenty of extension cords to run this into the house separate. So let me show you my other plan if the power goes out. Alright, I had to plug my phone in, so there's a charger cord there. So this is my other plan. This is the power inverter that I have set up. It's a modified sine wave. It's 1,000 watts. I would love to have a bigger, like a 2,000 watt inverter. And I'd love to have a pure sine wave. I just haven't been able to afford that lately. I'm still paying for my stroke. And you know, the $100,000 was over $100,000 for me to be in the hospital 3 days. So, I used to use this when I was a mobile mechanic in my vehicle. I've since stepped down to my old 400 watt inverter in my vehicle, and I use this back here now. I made up these cables, and I run the 2 batteries in parallel with, I just screw in there with a bolt and some washers, right? And I keep a trickle charger on them so that they stay topped off. Those batteries topped off will not sulfate. They will last a very, very long time. Okay? Now, if you run those batteries down, you know, really over 10%, you're doing some minor amounts of sulfating, but you get down below 20%, you're really starting to sulfate them. You don't get to run them down that low too many cycles or they go bad. But that's not the point of my batteries. My batteries aren't to run down really low. My batteries are going to stay topped off, and these batteries do what they're best at. Provide sudden large amounts of current for when a compressor kicks on a freezer or a refrigerator, right? They can spike that current way up and then go back to charging. Now, in that case, if I'm using them, I'm going to abandon the trickle charger, and I'm going to switch over to a better charger. This is the Topton TB8000. Topton sent this to me for free to test and do a review on. I tested it out, and I was like, I can't give this charger a positive review. It's a great trickle charger, and it's great at charging up a battery that's in good health, and it's not completely dead, but it's all computerized, and if you have a really dead battery, it flashes red, it won't charge it. It's like, when I have a dead battery, and this won't even recognize it or charge it, but I can take my old 1970s battery charger and hook it up and charge it up in a couple hours, and it'll be fine. There's something wrong. That's the reason I don't like this, and I can't recommend it. So they asked me, oh, don't do the video, just keep the charger. So, but this will work great because these batteries are healthy. This puts, I think, a maximum of 8 amps. And so I can charge these batteries nice and slow from a charge with this off of my generator. And then I can run other things off of this, like my chest freezer back here. I can run an extension cord up to my refrigerator, right? When the compressors kick in and it runs, it's going to use more current. But then the compressor is going to kick off and it's going to stop running. And it'll use no current, right? And while it's using no current, these will be charging. But they're good at providing sudden amounts of high current, right? That's what car batteries are good for. So I believe that in a backup situation, these are just fine, right? Now, I also have solar panels, and I have 400 watts of solar panels, so my charge controller is only big enough to run one of those panels. I am planning on buying another one, but this is just a little simple pulse width modulated charge controller, and this one's only 30 amps. So I need a bigger one, but that will work, you know, for now, off of one panel to keep these topped off or charged. And then when I have really low amounts of load and good sunny days, I can run the solar panels. A lot of people ask, why don't you put your solar panels out? I have put solar panels out in the past. They've always gotten broken. Tree limbs falling on them or something's happened and they get cracked, they get broken, and they're bad. So I don't really need solar all the time. I choose just to keep them where they're protected. And my plan was to just use one of them with that charge controller and keep the other one as a backup. But I might get a bigger charge controller in case I do want to run both of them. Also, I have my ham radio for my emergency communications. It runs off of those batteries. A lot of people are like, why don't you use a power supply for your ham radio? Well, because power supplies don't work if the power's out. It'll work fine while the power's not out. So, yeah. So there's that too. And I have some 12-volt LED bulbs that I can run off of that too. They're like screw-in light bulbs. So I could change this over. I could put up one of those 12-volt LED bulbs and a screw-in fixture and hang it up there if I needed to. And they're only 1 watt. So that would be ideal for a little light out here if I needed it. But this is more of a long-term power outage, not a short-term. A short-term power outage, I'm just looking for comfort, running my big generator, not having to worry about it. But what this will do, too, is allow me to run my generator, charge up my batteries, and then I can turn my generator off for a little bit, and I don't have to have all that noise. But as my batteries start to run down, I'll have to charge them up again. Or maybe that day the solar panels are working really good. I can not run my generator during the day, right? Keep that turned off and use less fuel. But that's just my thing, right? That's what I do. And like I just change the fuel out once a year and I get it out twice a year and run it. And I usually just plug it into my shed down here and run my shed on it for a few hours, right? And it's fine. I change the fuel out. I just put like a half a gallon of fuel back in it and stick it back up on the shelf. But I like to run things and make sure they're working on a regular basis. They're your backup plans when it's storming and lightning and raining in the middle of the night and you just woke up when there's no power and you got a flashlight. It's not the time to have a generator that's broken. That's the time you want everything to go very smoothly. So that's what I do. I'm also going to modify my furnace next so that I can plug it in directly. So that I can at least have natural gas heat off of that generator if I need to in the winter. I do have kerosene, I do have propane, but you know, that's a limited supply. The natural gas ideally would be for a long term if there's still natural gas available, right? And so when I say if it's still available, I don't mean because the zombie apocalypse happened, right? I mean, I've seen accidents where they've hit a pole taking down high voltage power lines. It was at a place that I worked, and we're like, whew, good thing we have a generator. It kicked on. And then the generator died. Well, the car also hit like a gas service thing that was sticking up and ruptured a gas line. So they had to shut the gas down as well. So those things can happen, right? So that's why I have kerosene and propane as a further backup. And you know, my big generator I can run, it's big enough that I could run a couple of just little electric heaters off of it as well. This one, it might run one electric heater, but that's about it. Alright folks, that's what I like to do, is to have multiple options to be able to use. They're not all the best options. I don't have Trojan deep cycle batteries. I don't have a Honda generator. They're not all the best. But I don't just have one of them. I have many different ways to try to fix that problem. You know, for instance, if these batteries do go bad, I can always go hook the inverter up to my car and turn it on and run it, right? There's multiple ways that you can break this down to be able to make electricity that could save your life, right? If you have to have heat and it's in dead of winter and you're out of kerosene and propane, now being able to run your natural gas furnace is very important, and being able to do it off of a small generator or an inverter is very important, right? And so I always try to have multiple paths, and none of them are the best, right? None of them are like top dollar high quality solutions, but I have so many plans that I can put into place that I'm thinking I'm going to be okay. So, you know, that's the same reason I have this electric mower under here. It's charged, it uses a 40 volt Ryobi battery. And it will take a charge, and I can cut about a half of the backyard, a half of the, and a front yard, right? So it'll take 2 or 3 days to get it all cut, but I can cut grass with that, even though I like my riding gas mower better. If gas isn't available, I'm going to be using the electric mower, right? If I even care about the grass, you know. So that's how I do it. That's how I work my backup plans. And I do tests on this stuff all the time just to see how well it will work, how much I could run on it. And like I said, I am going to be converting the furnace soon. And I'm going to test that this winter, just plugging the furnace in directly and seeing how long I could run it off of these, if I can make it a whole day. And we'll give it a shot and see what happens. All right, folks. I'll talk to you all later. It's Tom, your Frugal Prepper.